Okay, so few things in store for you today, and I'm delighted to be joined by our faculty and ed policy team members who really are the core of the program and who help to make things run smoothly. But you'll have a chance to meet everyone on the team and the program faculty. So you'll have a chance to network a little bit with the group. Um, the meeting will offer an opportunity for you to really gain insights, to learn and to gain insights into the program, a little more information about what the residency may hold and what that offers in terms of a kind of capstone experience. Um, we won't have testimonials today from our Ed Policy alums, but we will just give you some pointers or some insights into some of the things that they have said and shared regarding their experience. And then we will do some imagining and help you understand how the Ed Policy program can be a stepping stone into other academic pursuits, career opportunities, and personal development. Glad you're here for the ride at this point. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. And here is the opportunity that's really the best part, one of the best parts of the presentation, and that is you're going to have an opportunity to hear from each one of the faculty members in the program. Like I said, I'm Dr. Dwan Robinson. I teach several courses in the policy program. I'm the program coordinator for this offering, and I will be teaching the first course in the program that is what we call the foundational or Foundations of Education Public Policy. And we'll give you kind of an overview of the public policy process in education, let you understand what really where policy ideas emanate from and how they become actual policy agenda items. And you'll be able to learn a little bit more about the synergy and that's necessary for policy ideas to really come into fruition and to reach the policy agenda. I also teach a course called Issues, Institutions, and Stakeholders, and that helps us kind of have an understanding of the different players, the different entities that are involved in the policy process, how they advocate for and champion ideas and issues through the process, who the players are, who the stakeholders are, who the individuals are that weigh in and have voice and help to shape policy. And so that's that particular course. And then I help to navigate along with the team the opportunities that everyone will have during the capstone experience, which is what we call our residency. And typically our capstone experience is held over 3.5 days, but there's a lot of planning and preparing that has to go into working on artifacts and presentations and so forth on our end. And so I help to navigate that process as well. And so I'm going to introduce our next faculty member on the slide, Dr. Marshall Lewis, who is an associate professor and senior associate dean with the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs. And she can tell you a little bit about her experiences with the program and her courses. Dr. Lewis.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. It's good to see you all and to meet you all this evening. Yes, I am with the Public Service School at Ohio University, and we are partnering with the Patton College of Education on this certificate program. Glad to do it. It was a great inaugural cohort that we had last year, and we look forward to the new one. The Public Service School is an external facing school at Ohio University. We work with external partners in public, nonprofit, and private sector on just all kinds of issues: economic development, public health, education, and all kinds of we pretty much intersect with all policy areas. I personally, in this certificate program, I teach a 1-hour leadership course that uses a model from the JFK School at Harvard. And so it's a case-based course. You'll meet people via the case studies and analyze those case studies for the lessons that we can learn in terms of policy advocacy and policy leadership. And it's a nice complement, but a little bit different from the other courses in the program. We examine sort of look back at decisions that public sector leaders have made, even in the educational arena. For instance, one of the cases we use is Michelle Rhee's case from when she was chancellor of the DC Public Schools. Harvard wrote a great case study about her tenure as chancellor, and we dissect that in the program. Students found that very valuable. So we are very glad to partner with the Patton College on this certificate program and look forward to working with all of you. My background is in K-12 education, actually. I started out as a social studies teacher, and most of my applied research as a faculty member at Ohio University has been about K-12 performance and performance evaluation and how to do that well. So I have that substantive expertise as well as coming from the public service school. So it's good to meet all of you, and I'm glad you joined us tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. It's always good to hear from our Voinovich partners on this project. It is a collaborative opportunity between the Voinovich School and the Patton College of Education. So we're delighted to have you here and certainly thrilled to have you as part of the program. So thanks for that overview.
Thanks.
Next, we'll hear from Dr. Linda Trotman. Dr. Trotman is an associate professor at our Lancaster campus in political science. And Dr. Trotman will give you an overview of her experiences and connections with the Policy Leadership Certificate Program and also the courses that she's involved with. Dr. Trotman.
Good day and welcome to the informational session. As Dr. Robinson indicated, I'm Dr. Trotman. I've taught at Ohio University since 2005. I teach across the regional campus system, and I also teach graduate courses at the Athens campus. My major areas of expertise include within the field of American politics, urban policy, electoral politics, and legislative politics. I also teach a course on American public policy. Within this particular program, I teach 2 courses. The first one has to do with legal issues in education. It's an examination of the evolution of American law as it relates to public education and higher education. It's a fascinating course in the sense that we examine some of the central themes that really have impact education decision-making from a judicial perspective, specifically analyzing cases that pertain to free speech, especially relative to what's been happening within education today, specifically around professor rights and students' rights, especially when you have polarizing speakers. Within that class, I also introduced to the students substantive issues like school desegregation. And so we look at some of the pivotal cases such as the Brown case, but we also look at more recent cases. And then we also, as it relates to the issue of free speech, we look at some of the seminal cases such as the Tinker case, and then also examine other issues that really dovetail well into the next class. And that class is Policy Perspectives in Education. And it starts out with a foundational framework where we look at agenda setting, policy development, and eventually get to the point of analyzing policy change, and then evaluating the extent to which there has been what I call positive reform in the area of educational policy making. And to that end, we look at key legislation such as the No Child Left Behind Act, but then also look at some other pivotal pieces of legislation relative to educational policy, such as ESSA, Every Student Succeed Act. And so in my class, I put forth a multi-method approach as it relates to the assessments. So yeah, you all will get a chance to write about these issues as it relates to case studies, but also there would be analytical reports. And then I also like this part of the class, and I really engage the students as it relates to media assignments, so visual stimulation. So in a very summary way, those are the two classes that I teach. I also, for the past several years, have engaged in advocacy on Capitol Hill through my professional association, and essentially meeting with federal lawmakers to inspire them to support social science research. So I think that you'll find both of the courses interesting, and to my colleagues' courses. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Trotman. And Tasha shared in our chat that Dr. Trotman is profiled in the latest edition of Ohio News Today. And so, you know, that she's been blazing trails and forging pathways on her advocacy work and her work in political science in our at our university. And so you can learn more about some of the things that she's been involved with by exploring that publication as well. So thanks again. Dr. Jason Jolly is Ohio University faculty member. He's a professor of rural economic development, and he's also the Master's in Public Administration Director at the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs. And we're delighted to have Dr. Jolly with us. So Dr. Jolly, I'm going to turn it over to you to share a little bit about your experiences and connections with the program, and also the courses that you're involved with.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Robinson. So I have kids running up and down upstairs, so sometimes my light will start flashing, so it will look like I'm in a nightclub or something here in a minute if they bounce around too much. So I do teach in the program, and I teach education policy analysis. And it is a course where we take students through a process of identifying a particular problem that they're interested in focusing on in the program. And we then walk them through a series of exercises where we identify potential stakeholders that would be impacted by the problem, whose voices should we consider in addressing the problem. We then go forward and students identify a set of criteria, and they take the criteria and then they identify metrics for each criterion and use that to evaluate 5 policy alternatives that they want to consider to address the problem that they've identified. And one of the things that we're going to be expanding on in the course is previously students had looked at the political feasibility and the implementation feasibility of their issue. And we're going to try to take that a step further and really dive in with a week or a module on policy implementation, and have students think critically about what it would look like to implement the policy, not just what's feasible politically or from an implementation perspective, but to think about what are the best practices in trying to implement policies, what are some of the costs and other considerations that one might need to consider. Certainly, you can have great policies get all the way through the legislative process and still wind up with a problem at the implementation phase. So just getting something on the agenda and getting it through doesn't always mean that you're going to be successful. And in terms of my professional background outside of the program, I do direct the Master of Public Administration program here in the Voinovich School. And my background and focus is on economic development and to a lesser extent, entrepreneurship, particularly interested in how do we create high-paying jobs and sustainable wage jobs in rural areas. That's a lot of our focus and direct work here in Appalachia. But really excited again to be back teaching in the program. It's a lot of fun, a very collegial group of faculty members here, and great experience with the students. They bring a lot of diverse backgrounds and a lot of experience. I'm not an expert on education policy in quite the way that many of my colleagues are. My real value is to think about the analysis piece and what are the tools we use for policy analysis. So I learn as much from the students as they learn from me. And I know a lot about various pieces of education policy now as I've read all the policy briefs that the students are writing. So it's a lot of fun. I hope if you're considering it that you sign up. I think you'll get a lot of value out of it. And with that, I'll kick it back over to you, Dr. Robinson.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Jolly. As you can see, we have a very strong group of faculty that help to navigate the program, and they're poised and ready to go to work with students to really do some visioning about policy issues that they're passionate about from the beginning to the end of the program. Next, I want to introduce individuals who help make things go and help this program, happen. And these are Ed Policy Leadership Certificate team members from various offices and roles here at Ohio University. And I'm going to start by introducing Tasha Attaway. You all have probably already all had some contact with Tasha. She's the digital graduate recruitment manager, helps to market and recruit for the program, helps to onboard students, and to work with them to troubleshoot and ferret out things that they need in terms of the different offices and functions that the university has. Tasha, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
Well, hi, I'm Tasha Attaway, and I'm sitting here with egg on my face still. I truly apologize, but Dr. Robinson did an excellent introduction for me. That's basically the function that I serve with this certificate. I help with the admissions application process as well. So when you start your application, I'm saying hopefully, if you encounter any issues, feel free to contact me and I will help troubleshoot and we'll find our way through it. So anything that I can do to help you either make connections or if you encounter any issues, if there's anything that I can do to help, don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thanks, Tasha. And so Tasha's been super helpful with students who are already who've already been admitted to the program, things that they've been trying to figure out. Throughout the program, she helps with retention, like I said, and so she's a great point person and has put her email in the chat. So we will, look forward to having you engage with her and, as we continue to encourage you to join our learning community. The next person that is a team member for the Policy Leadership Certificate Program is Patrick Mose. He's the instructional designer for our curriculum. Patrick happens to be all the way across the world in Kenya right now, in Nairobi, Kenya. He traveled there several days ago. I spoke with him earlier. There's a big time difference, so it's late at night or 2 o'clock in the morning, I think, his time, but he won't be with us this evening. But he does really engage with the faculty quite extensively to help the curriculum come alive for our students. And when we were thinking about the policy program early on, we were all trying to visualize the kind of online coursework we would want to be a part of. And Patrick really did help us come up with some learning activities and adaptations that make the curriculum almost jump out of the screen at you. We learned how to do lightboard lessons and all kinds of features using several programs that our instructional designers are engaged in. And so it's almost like, you know, having academic work and being at a movie and playing video games and everything all rolled up into one, and really kind of fascinating learning experience. And so you'll probably have some opportunity if you enroll in the program to engage with Patrick in one form or another as we work and collaborate on the courses. And so next I'm going to introduce Sasheen Phillips. Many of you may have met Sasheen or heard from Sasheen already via email. Sasheen is a doctoral candidate in educational leadership here at Ohio University. And she's been really an anchor in terms of helping to get the program off the ground and keep things going. She has been really instrumental in helping to coordinate a lot of our activities and to stay in touch with our various stakeholders, including alums and potential students and current students when we have students taking courses. Sasheen was also helpful during the capstone residency experience in Washington, D.C. At the end of the last cycle. And so when we get to that point, maybe Sasheen will have an opportunity to share some of her observations from being there, wearing multiple hats, but also being able to look through the lens, the student lens. And so, Sasheen, I'm going to let you just introduce yourself and give us a little insight into your connection with the program.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Well, welcome and good evening, everyone. As Dr. Robinson shared, I serve as a team member for the EPPLC program. And in that capacity, I help with the operation and implementation. We hope and we are looking forward to having you participate. You will have a wonderful, engaging experience. Through my professional world, I've had the opportunity to work educationally at the local level, as well as the state level and national level. And when I think about the work and experiences that are available here with the program, they are so ideal that I wish I had that during my tenure in those positions. So I look forward to engaging with you further and hope that you take on all this information and see how valuable it can be to you personally and professionally. Thank you.
Excellent, Sasheen. The other team member that is not here is Lisa Dale. Lisa is the Assistant Director of Online and Outreach Programs. She is very instrumental in terms of the courses that you take and getting you registered. She's involved with enrollment and really helps to navigate our online programs for the College of Education. She is well connected with the Graduate College, and so helps to bird dog issues with applications and helps individuals kind of troubleshoot that process as well. And so Lisa's not with us. She may pop in toward the end of the meeting, but at the moment she's not here. And so you will definitely, if you enroll and become a part of this learning community, will have a chance to meet her as well. So we can go to the next slide. And I just want to begin to give you a little more of a flavor of the EPPLC program. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the expectations. of the program, talk a little bit about the course outline. We won't hear alumni testimony at this point because we do not have any alums with us this evening, but typically they are very, very active and involved in our activities on an ongoing basis and in our information session. Also want to talk a little bit about the residency, and we will give you kind of some glimpses of that through some photos that we took at the last residency, and just really talk just briefly on what the residency might bring for you. So we can go to the next slide. So the program overview, currently the program is listed as a 12-credit graduate program. We have been doing some visioning to pare the program down to 9 credit hours pending approval. You'll hear more about that in the coming months or weeks. The faculty spent a lot of time looking at how courses fit together, the process of policy making and how education policy flows from start to finish. And so we have been mindful of areas of overlap and areas of synergy so that the program fits together in a very methodical way, and so that it makes sense and gives our students a very good kind of introduction to the education public policy process, to the role of leaders as it relates to education public policy. And so you will, like I said, hear more about just how those courses fit together and the synergy of those courses, particularly given our kind of reimagining process that we have done regarding the courses and the credits. Courses are all online. At Ohio University, we use the Blackboard platform, but the online coursework, like I said, comes alive because within the Blackboard framework, we have many, many different learning activities that engage students through different programs and different learning activities. And so although it's online, we do try to spend quite a bit of time with students kind of getting to know each other. They have an opportunity to do voice threads and hear from each other visually or see each other visually. They have an opportunity to have some group work. Now that we have these new features with Microsoft Teams and opportunities to get into kind of breakout rooms and chat rooms, there'll be quite a bit more activity around that in an effort toward making sure that students get to know their colleagues and have an opportunity to network with one another. So the online coursework, while it may have been unique when we had our first cohort, online coursework is becoming kind of the new normal, I think, in education. And so we're really kind of, I think, ahead of the curve a little bit in terms of our experiences there. So the other little piece of information that I'd like to give you an overview about is the fact that we have policy topics and issues that we workshop from start to finish. Students have an opportunity to pick an issue of passion and to move through the entire program, really workshopping and addressing those issues of passion in different ways. And so that's a unique feature of the program. And like I said, the faculty has spent quite a bit of time thinking about the connectivity between the courses so that students can do that. And then there's the capstone residency that we've talked about. That's typically a 3.5-day experience in Washington, D.C. Given this era that we're living in, we're mindful of the fact that we have to be conscious of the health and safety of everyone. And so we're exploring some creative options and some innovative options for our capstone, which would involve doing something virtually. And we will certainly have a better understanding about that in the late spring, about how we will be delivering the capstone experience. So we can go to the next slide. Sasheen, did you have anything that you wanted to share on the capstone experience through the student lens?
I can. Yes, I can. The capstone experience truly exemplified what it described. It created an ideal opportunity for the participants to not only network and connect with legislative individuals, but it also allowed them to take a walk in their shoes as they engaged in the world of policy on the Capitol. In addition, during that time, the participants themselves, they also were able to collaborate and forge relationships and connections with each other within their cohort, because there was time for them to present their policy and their issue that they workshopped with each other, as well as to other officials and representatives in the program, and then have an opportunity to connect with legislative officials within their state. So there was a great time where they not only received information, but they were able to share the work that they had done within the program. So it made the experience all the more purposeful, because not only were they expanding and they showed that they enhanced their own policy knowledge, but they were able to apply what they know to help to support and advocate for change. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so this slide just shows a visual overview of the courses. The faculty have introduced their courses to you, so I'm not going to drill down into this course outline too extensively. And like I said, we're really reimagining how these parts and pieces fit together. And so the content will be the same, but the course lineup may look a little differently. When you, look at the program maybe a couple weeks or a month from now. But we've really thought through that, so you'll hear more about that later. We were going to hear from some education, public policy, leadership certificate alums, but we don't have any. But here is a photo of the individuals who participated in the EPPLC residency last December. You can see the students there. They're from all over the U.S., from many, many different states, as well as Ohio. And we're there pictured with the legislative aides from several congressional offices. The senatorial and primarily people from the House, except for Senator Sherrod Brown's office. His aide is there from Ohio. So, okay, we can go to the next slide. Dr. Lewis and Dr. Jolly, I'll let you take this next slide because you're both on it. So, Dr. Jolly.
Sorry, I'm trying to get myself unmuted here. So, yeah, this was in the Ohio University has a great lobbying firm that we frequently engage with anytime we're in DC, and they take us around. And so they actually set up their conference room and allowed us to use that space for an entire day, where we brought in experts to come in and speak with us. It was a great experience, and you can see here many of the participants, some of the guest speakers. Dean Middleton from the Patent College is there as well. I don't know if I'm going to steal the thunder if you have it on the next slide, but there's one picture somewhere with us and former Senator Trent Lott, who was there and came in and spoke. We had a couple of former congressional representatives who participated in our in our reception as well that we had there. Squire Patton Boggs is the name of the lobbying firm, the legal firm and lobbying firm. So it was a great experience all the way around. A lot of engagement with high-profile elected officials, a lot of great guest speakers, a lot of former Ohio University alums who work in DC who came and spent time with us. A great experience all the way around. Again, being able to spend time like this together in person over a few days, we really got to know the students really well. And also, it was just a great time to bond over some of the important issues that we face in education and education policy. So a unique experience for sure. Hopeful that we'll get to do it again. Dr. Robinson talk maybe more about that, depending on how things go with respect to COVID, et cetera. But it was a lot of fun. If you've not been to DC and not had a chance to get a chance to go through the Capitol to meet with elected officials, one of the things that I thought was really unique and important during this experience is our students got a chance to understand how to best engage with meeting with members of Congress and with their staff. And so what not to say, what to say, not to be too partisan or partisan at all, but really to stick to the issue. One of the things that I thought was great, one of the lead lobbyists who spoke with us talked about one of the best tips is when the congressional staff member puts down his or her pen, that means the meeting's over because they probably have someone else that's coming in right behind you. And so I thought that was a particularly good tip. It was a good tip for someone like me who talks a lot to take those social cues that it's time for me to be quiet. But again, fantastic experience. It was a lot of fun. You can do things that are important and professional and educational and still have fun. And that's how I would have described this experience. And again, if you've not been to DC and done this, this is a great way to get your feet wet and learn how to do it. And I also think that many of the skills that we were taught during this residency have just as much applicability to going and doing this kind of work in your own state capital, where you might be talking with folks around education policy in your state capital. Some of the same tips apply. So one last thing I will say, Dr. Robinson, I know you mentioned that some of the alums are not able to be here with us today, but we did have an information session, I can't remember, a couple weeks ago, a month ago or so, and we did have a packed house. I think there were 3 or 4 alums who were able to participate in that session. I know things are a little busier these time of year as we get closer to the holidays and folks weren't able to make it, but the alums are very engaged with us. We also do Twitter chats. And we always have 3 or 4, if not more, alums who are on our Twitter chats talking about some of the more contemporary challenges that we face in education. So again, very committed group of not just faculty, but alums who are contributing back to the certificate program. So
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, thank you for that, those insights and, that overview. The alums are definitely a very key part of our program, and it's nice to know that we've made an impact on their trajectory so that they want to continue to be engaged and involved with what we're doing. And so here's another slide. Dr. Trotman's on this slide. Dr. Linda Trotman, did you want to share some insights from the experience that you had while you were there with our cohort? She's quiet. Well, maybe she stepped away. Dr. Lewis, did you have some insights? Oh, okay.
So I had to unmute, but it was a phenomenal experience. I think you will find it very memorable. One of the highlights of the residency was that I got an opportunity to formally meet Senator Trent Lott. And when I was younger, he actually sent me a commendation as a result of some accomplishments that I had achieved. And so we were able to connect. So that was very interesting. But I thought what was the most important aspect of the residency program is that students got an opportunity to interact with each other, and they were socialized in terms of what they should prepare for once they got to Capitol Hill. And as someone who has been engaged in advocacy, it's always important for you to have your asks And so it gave students an opportunity to showcase their talent and to also detail the key issues that are important to them. So in one of the photos, it's the upper right one, you see that our alumnus, Kathleen Blackwell, had the distinct opportunity to meet her own congressperson. And he was engaging. He came in and talked about the state of education, in particular in Virginia. And so it was just a great, awesome experience. So I think, again, you'll find it very rewarding.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Trotman. And yes, Kathleen Blackwell was in a session with Representative McEachin's aide. And toward the end of that meeting, he popped into his office and she had an opportunity to really engage with him as well. So that happens. You know, the senators and representatives are busy voting and moving around on Capitol Hill, and you're running into people in the hallway or in the food court, or you know, they pop in and out of their offices. And so it is a real experience, very rich experience to engage with them. Here's the next slide. Sasheen, did you want to share something, or Dr. Lewis?
Sure.
Sasheen?
Sure, I'll start and I'll give it to Dr. Lewis. I want to say that I'm sure that you probably, as you have listened over the last couple of minutes, that you could hear in individuals' voices a level of excitement. And this has been almost over a year. And I want to say that it is truly authentic, because this experience created not only memories personally, but it also created them professionally for individuals around. And I want to go back to a comment that Dr. Jolly made about the alums' level of involvement, which is something I feel that makes this another piece that makes this program unique. After alums have completed this program, and I'm sure you have experienced some things, you've received your certificate, move forth professionally, and really don't connect back. But something that is powerful about this is that the alums have felt a connection. They don't feel obligated. They feel as though this has been such a valuable experience that they still want to immerse in this work. And this is evidence of ways of how that was fostered. For example, at this residency, if you look at the top left-hand corner of the screen, that was an opportunity where all of the students came together, and we had speakers who came in at Squire, Patton, and Boggs and provided feedback and information and answered their questions. They had a more intimate interaction with individuals who are working on policy. And then down on the lower left-hand corner, you see that they are actually working and collaborating with each other. So they're engaging with their work. So they not only had an opportunity to engage and they had their online experience, but now they were able to share face-to-face. And you would think that even though this was the first time that they were together, that people were shy, but they just automatically felt as though they had this connection through the program and throughout the year. And so they just dug right in and were vulnerable and transparent and really shared their work, to the point where they also were able to engage in other legislative experiences, such as the one up in the right-hand corner. And then finally, there is a time during the residency that the students, as you can see below, down in the lower right-hand column, for them to showcase their work, to workshop and share their policy issues with each other. And not only to share that information, but to get feedback and to talk about ways on how they could continue to advance this work. So as you can see, this is a fruitful experience that it shows how the work that takes place online brings it all together when they are also able to engage in this residency experience.
Great, thank you. We can go to the next slide, and maybe Dr. Lewis can share some insights as well on the residency and from her vantage point. Dr. Lewis?
Well, I think the only thing I would add is the opportunity and the value in the networking. And I know that others have touched on that, but for instance, some of the speakers at the residency were people that either were graduates of Ohio University, some of them were graduates of the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs and the Patton College, who are working on the Hill now. who can connect you, and once they get to know you, can be a network for you to get engaged in that policy work. And I think any kind of graduate experience, whether it's a graduate certificate, a degree, one of the most valuable things that you gain from that is the network. And I don't want to underestimate the network that you will gain when you're a part of the certificate. And I think that the capstone is one of many ways that you can engage in that. The capstone was wonderful. It was fun. It was great. And so many people got the cards of people that can really help them out and engage them in the policy process. So I just want to say that that's a real sort of added benefit of being in the program, is that networking that you'll be able to do.
Excellent, thank you. The other thing that was really, really exciting about the whole experience of students throughout the program, but also during the capstone, is making contact with one another, and also with representatives and people from Senate offices, because Dr. Steve Stivers, not doctor, but Representative Steve Stivers from Ohio met with a delegation of cohort members from Ohio, and he actually, went into his mental and his virtual Rolodex and actually plugged students in. There's Dr. Stivers, doctor. I don't know why I keep calling him doctor, but Steve Stivers at the top left. He actually gave names and contact numbers and facilitated follow-up meetings for some of the students who had participated in cohort 1. And there are some contacts and relationships that they have developed as a result of that, even up to now. So that's, something that it's a very personal kind of experience that we develop and have the opportunity to forge through contacts with the Squire Patton Boggs team in terms of making connections for us, and as a result of our interfacing and networking with one another and with people from the Hill. So these pictures are just kind of the final pictures of students and their experience in Washington. The photo opportunity here was made possible by Tasha Attaway. Tasha is also a photographer, and she captured pretty much, our students and our team in action as we went through the residency. So thanks, Tasha, for doing that, for documenting the experience in that way. So we can move to the next slide.
For 1 second, I just wanted to point out that at the top of this slide, there's the hashtag that we used during the tenure of the residency. And so if you wanted to take a look back at what kinds of things that the students were tweeting and what kinds of things that they were saying and sharing, just feel free to look for that hashtag EPPLC in DC 2019.
Right, definitely. As Dr. Jolly shared with you also, we have ongoing activities and experiences that individuals are engaged in on a regular basis. And he mentioned the Twitter chats. We do Twitter chats several times a year. We've had one per month really since early in the summer. But these are an opportunity for people to kind of come together around common topics, topics in terms of education policy and in education in general, and really almost battle it out, or discuss or have a conversation on Twitter. And so they're a lot of fun. Tasha's just put in the link that you can follow EPPLC on Twitter by going to the page, the web page, or the handle, which is @edpublicpolicy. And you can also follow some of the Twitter chats by going to the hashtag EPPLC chat. So do take a look at that. There's some really, really interesting and insightful comments from many different individuals, alums, faculty, different stakeholders on Twitter. So I'm getting down to the question and answer period and the frequently asked topics. Want to see what questions you might have. The benefits of the program, we've definitely shared that. People springboard from this program into other degree programs at Ohio University, and some into degree programs and doctoral programs at other institutions as well. We have a student who segued into a program in the business school, the executive MBA program. So there are benefits, career ladder opportunities. We have a cohort member who graduated and is now director of a nonprofit in the state. There are individuals who are seeking policy opportunities. They're having opportunities to speak at their state and local levels on their topics and their issues of interest. We have a superintendent from Northern Ohio who is very much involved with policy making issues for the state. And so it's really far reaching in terms of what the benefits are. The course sequencing we shared earlier, there's some synergy between how the courses follow. The program cost is something that's definitely a benefit and will be an added plus should the adjustments and streamlining work be approved. We may be able to offer some unique cost arrangements in the coming weeks that we had not had information about before. Application requirements, if you've got questions about that, we can certainly give you an overview about that. I talked a little bit about Blackboard and the course experience, and so any other questions that you have, please do let us know. Other questions, thoughts, concerns by anyone who's here in our midst? And I see that one of our participants is having to leave. So Wendy and Ella, do you have questions?
I do. This is Wendy. I was wondering if you have any examples of some of the sort of projects that some of the students did in the last cohort. I'm just trying to get some idea of sort of what were some of the things that they worked on and took them, all the way to the residency and spoke to folks about that.
So one in particular that we can certainly highlight at this point, and a couple actually, but one of our cohort members is and have been for many years been interested in the issue of food insecurity. He's a faculty member at Ohio University and decided he wanted to gain more policy and advocacy experience through the program. He explored the issue of food insecurity. It just so happened that some of our course content covered the issue of poverty in the U.S. and food insecurity issues. He ultimately became connected with entities and organizations across the state that informed his work. He was one of the students that had the opportunity to meet with Representative Steve Stivers, who gave him some contact information of organizations of farmers, of meat packers, of individuals in communities that he could plug into and really see what some of the localized issues were around this issue of food insecurity and child hunger. One of our posts on our website shows a feature with him being interviewed about his topic and just how he was able to really benefit from and springboard off of this program into work that he's doing across the state now. He continues to be a faculty member in our hospitality and consumer science program. But he is doing quite some innovative things in terms of food provision for students who are hungry and their families, and has really plugged into issues around food insecurity and getting food to students during this unusual year that we've had in K-12 education. So he would be one that would have certainly many artifacts and lots to share with you about his experience. Another student who graduated and is a student who is now working with a nonprofit organization. She's the executive director. Was passionate about early child experiences, preschool experiences, and the early educational opportunities for students. And she did a lovely job of doing a virtual residency in the state of Ohio, where she really put together a whole plan for herself of contacts and of networking, and of really kind of workshopping her topic. And she really kind of workshopped it all the way into another position here in the state with this nonprofit organization. She was not able to join us for the residency, but sought to create a simulated residency on her own. So it really turned out quite nicely for her in terms of the networking and the contacts that she was able to really make and springboard off of to segue into her own professional career trajectory. So those would be two that I can think of. Some of our other faculty may have some others that they can recall as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, do people usually come into the program? I mean, I guess you've only had one cohort, come into the program with sort of an idea or a passion that they are interested in pursuing, or does it sort of develop, I guess, as you take the classes?
It really does develop as you take the classes. I think, people who have an interest in education policy have something in their minds in terms of an issue that they may want to explore. And so we had students who were interested in services and educational experiences of students with eating disorders. We had students who were interested in connections between housing and educational opportunities, the financial literacy of young adults or of students as they matriculate from high school to college was something that was an issue, kind of a platform issue or policy problem that we had a student who was exploring. So really, some people came in with an idea and switched midstream because as they were hearing about and learning about policy experiences through the coursework, they decided to change. We do provide examples of education policy kinds of issues, both historical ones and contemporary ones, as we kind of share the coursework and share the readings and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunity if you have something that you're interested in to expand on that, or there are opportunities to learn something new through another policy issue as well. Thanks for that question, Wendy. Yeah, good question. Other thoughts, questions, insights from our team?
I have a quick question, if I may. This is Ella, and thank you so much for this very informative session and overview. And I guess my interest is in higher education, and especially issues surrounding international students. And so, me being myself international, I'm from Ukraine. You know, I'm just curious if, you know, I saw on the website that this certificate is really for people who are interested in K through 12 or higher education. And so could you talk a little bit more about, like, if, you know, people with international students in mind and higher education, would that be a good fit, you know, for this program and this certificate? Yeah.
Thanks for that question, Ella. And so that gives me a perfect kind of segue into what I wanted to talk about in relative to the real personal touch and the intimacy of the program. The program is intimate enough that faculty really do try to springboard off of interests and issues and topics that students have a passion for. I can speak from my experience with the first course, for example, which is the foundational understandings of education public policy. And we do some activities and learning activities and have some coursework and assignments that focus on not only K-12 education, but also higher education, and looking both at legislation and laws that would inform veterans, you know, adult learning, and veterans coming back and learning, and the experiences of students as they move from high school to college, who may be foster children, was one of the topics that we workshopped during the first cohort in that first class. We touch on international issues as it relates to our education policy content. We recognize that education policy doesn't happen in a vacuum. We have international students in our K-12 educational system, and therefore need to be fully informed about how we can meet the needs of international populations. But we also have to be conscious of the bidirectional impact that our U.S. Education public policy has on the world of education public policy, and how the world education public policy impacts the U.S. experience. Interestingly, during our cohort last December, we offered a whole session of panelists who talked a little bit about, you know, the impact of education public policy and from an international perspective. And so we had an individual from George Washington University who is really very much involved in global affairs and international issues as it relates to education policy, and also an individual who has started a school. He actually was a graduate of our Ohio University family. He has started a school in Ghana. And then we had another individual who is very much involved with the Fulbright organization and who we happened to run into when we were on Capitol Hill several days after that session, who was there lobbying for the rights of international students in higher education. So a really unique blend of topics and interests, and certainly, I certainly would say you could probably find a niche in the program just because of the personal touch. So, Dr. Lewis or anyone else, do you have any other responses to share with Ella?
Well, Dr. Robinson, this is Jason. I turned my camera on, but I think you said what I was going to say, which was particularly mentioning, Ohio University has a very diverse group of international students here, and we particularly have a strong relationship with Ghanaian students, a lot of Ghanaian alums. And so we did have the individual who came and talked about his work in Ghana, who was an alum. And I was thinking about my class in particular. That would be a great topic to look at in education policy analysis. And in the MPA program, I teach a course on policy analysis for our MPA students, and I use some of the same kind of framework. And we've often had students write about international student issues, things around HB1 visas. How do we retain the international students that we have that come study in the U.S.? Ella, I think there's a lot of intersection with that topic in your area of interest in higher ed and international students across many of our courses. So I'd encourage you not to be dissuaded if you look and see that the majority of the people maybe you're focusing on K through 12, because again, a lot of diverse topics even in that area. And so I think there's plenty of space for higher ed in this program. So I'm excited actually about your question and your area of interest, and hope that you'll consider the program, because I think there's a lot of value that we can add.
Very good. Thank you.
I have another question.
Sure.
I'm also very interested in higher education because that is where I teach now, and I was wondering, in terms of I have a full-time position. I teach, and part of my job is administration. What's the time commitment, each week, in terms of being able to balance my work and the coursework?
So the time commitment is typically we suggest that it really depends on whether it's a 1 credit hour course or a 2 credit hour course. The courses are no more than 1 or 2 credit hours and are spaced out. Typically, it's fairly manageable. I would say for my particular courses, we do 1 module per week with a complement of readings, some learning activities, and then some mini assignments at the end of each week. The course will culminate in an assignment, kind of a capstone assignment for that particular course. I can't put a number on it. I think it would really depend on the students, but it's manageable because the program is designed for working professionals. It's designed for adult learners who we recognize are busy with their lives and who have other responsibilities. And it's also designed to help individuals get their feet wet, so to speak, for programs that they might consider pursuing on an advanced basis in another degree experience. So I think it's fairly manageable. The nice thing about online learning is, and it's not synchronous, it's asynchronous primarily, is that you can do it you know, as your time permits, you can complete the assignments as time permits, whether it's at 2 o'clock in the morning or, you know, 7 a.m. or lunchtime. So, you know, I think we've been able to design something that can meet the needs of students, still have some level of rigor, and, you know, quality in terms of the offerings, and then can kind of help students, you know, segue into other learning experiences after this program if they so choose. Other faculty may have some other insights about that as well. Dr. Trotman or Dr. Jolly or Dr. Lewis?
I would just echo that sentiment. You know, our MPA program where Dr. Lewis and I teach, we have an online MPA, an executive MPA, and an on-campus MPA, 3 delivery modes. 90% of our students are in our executive MPA or our online MPA, and all of them are working professionals. So we're very accustomed to teaching working professionals. We understand that, you know, they're going to be, well, there's always a little bit of challenges in trying to do things synchronously. So we don't really do hardly anything in a synchronous fashion. We may hold virtual office hours, and we typically try to do that in the evenings or over lunch when people can make it. And even that doesn't always work because folks are all over the country with different time zones, et cetera. But we record those and make them available. We're available. I just think you'll find flexibility and understanding because we're used to teaching adult learners because that's who comprise the students in the those are the students who comprise the MPA program. And so speak for Dr. Lewis and myself, that's not unique to us because those are the students we normally teach.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So to reiterate, I think there is great flexibility, especially since the courses are asynchronous. And I also believe that it's manageable because in particular for my courses, students have perhaps 1 assignment per week and also some readings, but I think it's very flexible. And we as a faculty, we provide support to the students to ensure that they are successful in the program.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question, Wendy. All right. Tasha has shared a number of really wonderful links in the chat for you. The frequently asked question link that's also available on the Ed Policy website. She talks about some of the other issues and topics that the first cohort pursued. There's a link to the article on the cohort's experience in Washington during the residency. There's also a link to Tom Stevenson's his experience, his interview about food insecurity. And then, Tasha, are there other things in the website that you shared as well?
I'm sorry. Those were the main ones. Just about everything that I shared is linked directly from the website at ohio.edu/education/EPPLC, and that link is in the chat as well. So again, if you think of any question later, don't hesitate to contact us. We're trying some other things as just networking and communication tools for our cohorts, including there is a LinkedIn group that focuses on education public policy. Currently, it's a private group, but it's just one more tool that we use to help our students to stay in touch and to share valuable policy information.
Right. We try to curate information for students on policy topics and provide those. We also have a Microsoft Teams site where we try to post content with articles of interest and information of interest, so that you can get some ideas and overviews of what hot topics there are in the policy world. Also want to call your attention to the information on Twitter in the chat, and the article on Dr. Trotman that you'll want to read up on. But if we don't have any other questions, I will wrap up at this point.